Are you working on your author career but struggling to get that first book published? Does the goal of being an author seem too lofty? Or thoughts of having multiple books and making a full-time living are as fantastical as living in Cinderella's castle? Welcome to Discovered Wordsmiths, a podcast where aspiring authors can be heard. Join Stephen Schneider as he finds and talks to authors you may not know, but authors that have gotten their foot on the author career path. Hear what they've done to get there and where they want to go now. Settle back. It's time for a bit of inspiration and advice. Come listen to today's Discovered Wordsmith.
Welcome to another episode of Discovered Wordsmiths. Today I talk with Thomas Brigger, who used his experience while working in the Appalachian Mountain area to write a book, a fiction mystery book that involves the opioid crisis, which he says he witnessed in that area quite extensively. The book is a mystery based in the area, and again, on his experience. He's from Ohio, which I like because I'm from Ohio. It's a great interview. I hope if you find it interesting that you'll check out his book. Let him know where you heard him and some likes. And if you are enjoying the podcast, please go to your favorite podcast app, give us a couple likes, whatever, a review. It would be great and help us a lot and help all the authors that we talk to. So here's Thomas. Well, Thomas, thank you for being on the podcast today. It's good to talk to you. I'm glad you took some time to talk to me today. If you could, let's find out a little bit about you. Tell us about where you're from, a bit about your background, what you like to do outside of writing.
I originally am from Cincinnati. I've done a lot of traveling. I spent a lot of time on the East Coast, and recently I've just returned back to Ohio. I actually, my background is pretty much of a variable because I was in college majoring in English when I ran out of money, and I work as a construction worker, but I've also worked as a business writer, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner. I've actually was in a management team of a large corporation, so I've kind of seen life through a lot of different windows, and to me, I think makes life kind of interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, I did a lot of traveling, and that's kind of where the writing comes in too. I was traveling all around the country for several years, and I just got interested in how people are the same in different areas, and that always was in my head. So I just thought, well, it's something I could write about, and I've been writing. Actually, almost all my life, it's a hobby of mine. I would write short stories and actually send them to my sister.
Nice.
And so there's quite a collection, and someday I'll publish that. She begged me for years to publish something. And when I finally wrote Beyond the Higher Ground, unfortunately, she passed away and never got to see it. But
sad.
But well, it happens. But I always have been writing, and I've always been writing about people in different parts of the country. And Beyond the Higher Ground, the book that I have out currently takes place in Appalachia.
Oh, yeah. So tell us a bit about the book.
All right. I actually got the inspiration to write the book sitting in a hotel room in Cleveland, Ohio one night. I finished a really bad novel. And I thought, even I could do better than that. So at the time, I was doing a lot of construction work down in the Appalachian areas in the Blue Ridge area. And I was struck not only by the people and the beauty of the place, but also the heartbreak of the opioid crisis in that area. And I kind of wanted to maybe expose that in some fashion and make people aware of it, because I don't think people really are aware of the opioid crisis in America, in rural America. We know about it in the big cities and so forth, but it's pretty bad in parts of Ohio too. So I thought it'd be good to maybe bring some awareness to it, but I didn't want to give a rough expose of how terrible things are in Appalachia. So I wrote about a man's personal struggle to overcome his tragedies and regain his life in the context of the opioid crisis.
And so, based on what you saw around you, that's what triggered you to want to write something like this? Because you said you were writing short stories for your sister. This seems like a pretty big difference between what you were doing there.
Yeah, it just was, I thought it'd be good to write a novel. So that was in my head at the time. Like I said, I was witnessing a lot of it down there. And since it was kind of fresh information, it was good to put in the book at that point.
Okay. And is this, you said you saw it, thought of it as you were doing work. How long did this like sit in the back of your head before you actually sat down and decided to start writing? And just to clarify, it is fiction, right?
Yes, it is fiction. Yes.
Okay.
It's fiction. It's based on, my own experience, but it is purely fiction. But I was, what really got into my thinking was even my own experience with employees that were under my direction and so forth, and seeing just the tragedy. So it was something I was thinking about pretty hard. So I probably, after about a year or so of being in that area, I started having in my back of my mind of at least having some way of exposing this problem.
And so did you base characters off of people you worked with and things like that?
Yeah, people ask me that question a lot, and I love to answer it, because every character that I have in my short stories, in this book, and in the book that I'm currently writing, every character is some characteristic of someone that I've met, and in a lot of cases, a little bit of me in there too, which may be good or bad. I don't know.
Right. So have you gone traditional route, found an agent and publisher, or did you self-publish this?
No, this is my first book. I didn't even know where to start for publishing, so I used a hybrid, and it's kind of like it's like using a publisher and self-publishing through it. So
Okay. Who's the publisher?
Page Publishing.
Page Publishing. All right. And I actually don't get as many authors on here that have used publishers. So what's your experience been like with working with a publisher?
Well, working with a hybrid, the experience was difficult. And the reason being is I was not really aware of how much marketing I had to do on my own, and how the timing of the release of the book was going to be. And I also relied entirely too much on their editing capabilities, because when the book was released, I had so many editing problems that I spent about another 2 months or so trying to get the editing straightened out. So the other part of it is just as the book was finally ready to be released again, re-released, the COVID crisis came up and made marketing very difficult. You don't get very many book signings with that. So, so I hired a publicist. I hired Anthony Mora, and that's been going very well for me now. But I would say though that if you're going to publish, go to self-publish, that's fine. There's an awful lot of help you can get with that, but there's also a lot of work to it, much more work than I thought was involved with it, particularly once you have the book finished.
So based on your experience, would you go through an agent publisher again, or you just want to go independent from now on?
I'm not going to use a hybrid again. I'm going to go probably the traditional route. And I just finished another book. I'm editing it right now and sending out queries to agents. I just think that in my case, I think as long as somebody will pick it up, and my first book is doing well, so I think I've got a good shot. In my case, I just think it's you get an expert, a pro who's going out to traditional publishers and knows how to present it, is going to sell for you, and has skin in the game. He's going to be looking to do a good job for you. So I think I'm going to try to go that route this time.
Okay. And is this second book a sequel, or is it a separate story?
No, people ask me, are you going to write a sequel? But my first book was about a man who's running a construction job. He's not a very exciting guy. It's like writing a book about a plumber, So no, it's not that, but it is the same general background theme of the drug crisis in rural America, and actually it takes place in Ohio.
Oh, great! That I always love things from Ohio. We seem to have a lot of artists and creative types from Ohio, a lot of actors, a lot of directors and authors, and lots of people on the moon from Ohio, and lots of presidents.
Yeah, you're right.
So if you went back and started over now, knowing what you know, what things would you do different with your first book?
I probably, when I finished the book, I would right away start editing seriously. I did a very cursory job of editing because I was going to trust the publisher, And you really have to know what you have in your content. You have to make sure it makes sense. It's very easy to write, and I kind of quirky, I might write. You might find me writing at 2 o'clock in the morning. So it's very easy to miss punctuation or spellings and stuff, even with the word processors that we have. So one thing I would do is really scrutinize that book and read it 2 or 3 times again to make sure that I have it exactly the way I want it, because you can really lose a lot of time once the editors get a hold of it and they have to do a lot of work. So I would definitely do that. And I also, though, would really concentrate and have a plan in mind of how I'm going to market this book so you don't lose time when you get it out.
And
The other thing I didn't do is you really should start marketing before the book is published. So,
no, that's good advice. In what way? What have you done that you now learned that you'd like to do different?
what I have done is actually what I did, the right thing that I did, it was to hire a publicist. What I would not do is rely so much on the online book club services and so forth, uh, primarily because it depends on who your audience is. And my style of writing is somewhat more sophisticated. And what I find when I get reviews from professional reviewers, I get excellent reviews. And when I go through the online services, a lot of them find the book a little bit esoteric, I guess. And I don't quite get the feedback that I was looking for. So I also find that that's a very restrictive audience. You want to have a larger audience going after your book.
And what has some of that feedback been from people who have read the book?
Uh, I had one that said this book would be best read by an English major from Harvard. Another one said I use too many big words. Uh, that's. But the Midwest Book Review gave me an excellent rating, which is a professional book reviewing service. And like I said, the professional reviewers are receiving it very well. But you do find people who are just people like you and me who are reading and they want to do a review. Now, my reviews on Amazon.com are fives all across the board. So it
Nice.
just depends on who your audience is.
Yeah. Okay. So when you're writing your book, what services and what software do you use to write?
I do it in Word. I submit on a PDF or an EPUB, but I do everything in Word because it's so much Word's so easy to work with and so universal. And that's really all I really have to get things done. Now, with the internet, your research is you don't have to go out and meet people and so forth. So the internet is
You don't have to try all the drugs and stuff to see what they're like.
That's about it. So you get so much information from the internet, and you have people that I people would laugh at you because I ask questions of what are you asking that question? Well, I'm going to put it in the book. Well, then people are anxious to answer that. Uh, one of my sons is a doctor, and I ask him questions. He says, "Are you writing a book again, Dad?" And I said, "Yeah, I am." So, but that's really what I do is I just pretty well just stick with Word, but I never send anything out in Word because of the corruption problem. So I either use EPUB or a PDF.
Got it. So you said your one son is a doctor.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you consult with him on some of the opioid information or anything like that?
I did, but I had so much information of my own. He was asking me questions. But as far as on the current book that I have, I needed a lot of help because I had some people with physical problems. The current book that I'm writing features an awful lot of people with PTSD, and he gave me a lot of information on that.
Oh, interesting. So I'm bouncing around a little bit here. You mentioned the PTSD. Does your book at all delve into the mental health issues associated with people who get addicted or stuck on taking these drugs?
Yeah, actually, no. The answer would be no. In my first book, it does to some degree, but in the book that I'm writing right now, the people with PTSD have it for other reasons. I have two characters. One is an older gentleman who is having flashbacks from the Vietnam War, and the other one has PTSD from a tragic beating that she took, and the two of them are working together to help resolve their problem.
Wow. It's interesting to me personally because based on some things in my life, I've studied a little bit mental health and PTSD and things like that for personal reasons. So it's always interesting to hear other people's take on it or feedback and how they employ that into their stories.
It's interesting, and I have some first line experience because I always thought PTSD only came from people who fought in wars. But my own wife went through some difficult times, having some very serious surgeries and sicknesses, and she was diagnosed as having a certain amount of PTSD. So,
Yeah, I think it's something. You're right, though. Originally attributed to the war, that's where it first showed up big time, I guess you could say. But they've since reevaluated and realized there's other reasons that people experience it, and people experience it for different reasons in different ways. I think it's one of those things that, back in the 70s, when it was kind of first coming about, people started knowing about it. It's grown a lot in knowledge of what they realize now. So it's way different, I think.
no, people they cover it up. And my dad was on the U.S. Lexington in the World War II, and the Lexington sunk in the Battle of the Coral Sea, and he could never get himself to talk about it.
Yeah, I bet that's something I can't even imagine.
Yeah, yeah.
Let me ask you a little bit of a personal question. In the Appalachians, my son is big into cryptids and supernatural paranormal type stuff. And I know the Appalachia area around here, Pennsylvania, and that has had some strange occurrences. Has you had anything weird happen to
I have
you?
a lot of stories, and I'll tell you what. Some of those people that I was working with down there, if you bring a 6-pack over to the front porch, you're going to get some great stories. Uh, they really they have a lot of stories about ghosts, particularly in the most forested areas and so forth. They're very superstitious, and I can where we were actually building a prison. There was a mountain, an adjacent mountain. They said nobody goes there because it's haunted, and I was like, this is kind of funny. Really. So,
No, that's interesting. I'll have to remember that when I'm doing research for a set of stories I want to work on. Just get some beer and head down into the
well,
Appalachians.
if you read my book, you'll meet Cecil, and if you hear the audio version of it, Jack DeGolia just nails Cecil to a T. But Cecil is just that guy, and he's actually a combination of some people that I met. But my main character goes and visits Cecil with a beer all the time, and Cecil tells him stories. So,
Nice. So you mentioned audio. So the book is available as an audiobook also. How's that going? Did
it's going
you
fine. We just got a very good review in AudioFile magazine with that we posted with. So that's taken off pretty good right now too. The print version is doing well. It seems like these days most people are ordering from the online services, and so the digital copies are going well too.
Nice. Okay. Well, that's good. I haven't heard a lot of other authors, new authors that do audiobook. So I'm glad to hear there's
Well,
still some people wanting to do it.
it's the only way. I don't read books hardly anymore. I always listen to them because I'll do it at the gym or something like that. So I kind of got into liking the audio books. It's not that hard if you go through, like I did a self published on the audio book, but I went through ACX, which is part of Amazon, and
Uh-huh.
you can audition your narrators and really kind of prepare well for it. So I think it's easier than you might expect.
Well, I also know up in Cleveland, there's Find Away Voices. That's their headquarters, and
Yeah,
they
yeah.
do audiobooks, and that's where I'm probably going to be going through. Just because I don't like the 7-year contract thing.
Well, the with it depends on which one you're going to go with. And for me, I didn't know one from the other. I know a lot more now than I did before, so I probably would have a broader reach. If I go through somewhere like that the next time.
Yeah, and it's a learning process, and that's why I ask some of the questions with new authors because I get a lot of authors who haven't published, and they're like, "Well, should I do this? Should I do that? Should I do this?" And it's like, "Well, first of all, get your book written. That's the first thing you should do." But then I'm like, "Well, here's what a lot of authors say after their first book or two, what they would do different." And it's good to hear a variety, because then you say, well, you know what, like 8 out of 10 people say this.
Right.
And that's, I guess you could say much more truthful than just getting advice from one or two people who haven't published yet.
Well, the interesting thing is, and I used to always say this when in business too. I used to say, I've been running businesses all my life, and it's amazing how much advice I get from people who don't run businesses. And
Right.
the same thing happens with writing. I think the only way to really learn how something works is to go do it. And in my case, I just went ahead and did it. I just went ahead and started writing, and I was glad I did. And it's writing to me now. I'm much more serious about it. I'm much more focused with it, just because I've got some experience behind me.
Yeah. And I found that myself. I was talking to someone the other day. I feel like from when I first began, I've moved up to a different level,
Right.
and I can feel that I'm kind of ready to hit that next level from here. And it's just based on my experience and what I've learned and seen and what my thoughts on the whole publishing industry. We'll see. I could be wrong, but I can kind of feel that. I don't know any other way to describe it.
Well, no, I agree with you 100%. Really, it's and the publishing industry right now is kind of getting rocked because of the self-publishing and so forth. Plus they're getting inundated. A lot of people have been sitting at home; they had nothing else to do but write.
Right.
The publisher I'm working with right now just told me that they were like just swamped with queries. So
Wow.
uh,
That's interesting, because I do know the uptick in reading with the COVID was nice to see. So it's interesting that some of those people said, well, now's the time to write a book too.
well, and that's good, but it's not writing the book is not as easy as a lot of people think. I'm not one who does big structure with the outline and so forth. I kind of like to create my characters and they start telling you the story. Uh, but you can get a lot of trouble with that if you're not really focused on what you're doing.
Right. Agreed. So let me ask you this, Thomas. What is a couple of your favorite books or authors that you've had throughout your life?
Well, and a lot of people just kind of shake their head when I say this. My favorite author of all time is William Faulkner. And I know he's a bit difficult for some people, but I just think his work is so creative and so well structured. I'm a big fan of Hemingway, but I also read a lot of Grisham.
Oh yeah.
And I think John Grisham, as far as his storytelling capability, he's the top of the heap. David Baldacci has his own style. I'm actually listening to one of his books right now. I really like what he does. But my favorite book of all time was Moby Dick.
Oh yeah. Wow.
Probably read it 5 times in my life since I was 12 years old. But
Nice.
yeah, it's good descriptions.
So a couple things. My mother retired about 5 years ago, and so now she's catching up on all the books she's always wanted to read. And Grisham and Baldacci are like two of her favorites.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. But they're good storytellers. They're different. They're different from each other, but they're good
Yeah.
storytellers.
And so you read Moby Dick at age 12.
Yeah, yeah.
I love that, because I write middle grade fiction and I struggle with it sometimes because I wasn't typical. I was reading Hardy Boy books in kindergarten.
Yeah.
So I skipped a lot of the phases, you might say. So I sometimes find it hard to think of the right age group, I guess. So what made you want to read Moby Dick at that age? Because, everyone else was, reading other things, Narnia or something.
If I recall, it's a long time ago, but it was at the library. My father took it off the shelf and said, "You ought to read this." I said, "Okay."
Wow.
So that was it. My dad was not well educated, and he's just an old Navy chief, But he loved to read, and he took us to the library almost every week.
Nice.
My sisters and I, and we just kind of would hang out there. So that's where I really got into reading, and I've been an avid reader ever since then.
I find that pretty awesome. I love that. I remember taking my kids to the library quite often, and doing that a lot.
Those days are on now. I think the people, you got the computers and all that, and the iPad and everything. So I haven't been in a library in years.
I've been, just because still lots of my kids And I say kids, but the youngest one is 13 and the rest are above 18. So they're still kids, but we got some readers and they like to check out the books and
Yeah,
have the books in the hand.
yeah.
I know I have a friend where they live. There's not a good access to a library. So they had a bookmobile from one of the local
Oh,
libraries
really?
come,
I haven't seen one of those
and
years. Yeah.
yeah, they loved it. He has 4 kids, so they'd all go and check things out. Well, they started checking out graphic novels and comic books and that. And he said it went from having like 5 choices that their family went every week and skewed the numbers, so they ended up getting like 100 trade paperback comics in the bookmobile just because the numbers showed that everybody was
Well,
checking them
moving.
out, but
Yeah,
it was
that's good.
really just him.
That's marketing.
Yeah, exactly. So down in Dayton, do you have and you might not, but do you have a favorite bookstore that you like to go to?
I just moved here from the East Coast almost about a year ago, about 2 years ago. And I've been buying most of my books I've been getting online. So there's a Barnes and Noble up the road here. I do have a list of independent bookstores here. I've not been to any of them except for Joseph Beth down in Cincinnati, and it's been years since I've been there. But I sent them each a copy of the book, to see if I get it in the independent stores. But I really don't go into the bookstore that much anymore.
Yeah. I know there's one down in Dayton I've been to that I like. It's called Dark Star Books in Yellow Springs. I don't
Yeah,
know how far.
I actually sent them one of my books.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's a nice bookstore. I
it
like
is
that
okay.
one.
I've not been in it. I saw it on the. They have a website, and uh, just for just because the Ohio bookstores, might pick up somebody from Ohio. That's all.
Right. Exactly.
It's hard to get into the bookstores though. There's not much space there, and
Right.
I'm working on Hudson Books right now because that's in all the airports and everything.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Hopefully, we'll see that showing up.
Well, that'd be great. I want to follow up with authors at like 6 months to a year and find out how they're doing, if they've gotten another book and things. So maybe you'll be able to update us in a few months or a year about getting into airports and things. That'd be great to hear about.
I'll be glad to. Yeah, I'll tell you the ups and downs on it. It's they're a pretty tough bunch.
Yeah. Again, limited space. They want the biggest sellers.
But when I was traveling, I would walk into a train station or an airport and buy a book all the time,
Yeah. Yep.
at least once a week. So I think that's a good place to have your at least your print books.
I know there's a thing I saw, and I need to follow up with it because I don't remember what it was, but it's an organization that gets books and puts them in various kiosks in the New York subway, so subway riders can grab a book to read.
Oh, really?
And yeah, I don't remember the name of it or anything, but I remember reading about that, and it's been in the back of my mind that, hey, I need to get a carton of books and send it to them.
Yeah, yeah. I keep books here, and I do give books away. It's kind of funny. My wife has some health issues. She spends a lot of time in the hospital. I must have 50 different nurses at different hospitals reading my books. But that's they're good. They talk to a lot of people. So.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And my wife, I mentioned my wife. I'm like, I should probably carry a box of books in my trunk because we went camping last weekend, and in the rec room they had a small library. Take a book, leave a book. I'm like, well, heck, I could leave 5 of my books. She's like, why didn't you? I'm like, because I just don't always think about it.
I'll tell you what, I do carry the books in my car, and I also carry little business cards with with the book information on it. I was in a Kroger store last week, and a lady was looking at the book section, and I came by and I said, I forget which, it was Nora Roberts. I said, "Do you like Nora Roberts?" And she said, "Well, yeah." And I said, "Do you know who this guy is?" And she gave her the card. She said, "No, I've never read anything by him." And she looked at me, "Is that you?" And I said, "Yes." She says, "Well, I'm going to buy the book." So you never know.
Great. Yeah. Yeah. That's probably good advice for everybody. Be prepared at a moment's notice. It's that guerrilla marketing thing. If every day you got one person to take your card and get your book, that's way more sales and way more people interested than most people get. So don't pass it up.
You just don't know. I ran into a nurse at the hospital who said she belongs to a book club. I said, "Boy, have I got something for you." So
Nice.
So those are good. If you can find a book club, that's good because my sister-in-law is in a book club with 26 other people, and I really got good coverage with them.
Oh, well, that's a great bit of advice. So before we get going, any other advice for some new authors?
Yeah,
Anything new?
I would say for new authors, to the mistakes that I made, you don't rush into it. Think your way through it. Know what you're writing and pay attention to it, because there's nothing harder that, at least for me, is to get to the end of a book and realize I have to go back and edit this whole thing. The other thing I would say is write what you know. It comes so easy that way, I wrote about what I knew. I was down there. I was right in the middle of all this, So if even if you're writing fiction, even if it's science fiction, concentrate on things that you really know, in your heart. Then it flows so much easier that way.
And if you want to write what you know, you seem to have a lot of stories on the supernatural. We should co-author a book together and
Really?
write some supernatural fiction based in the Appalachians.
Yeah, well, yeah. There's some good books about that. Barbara Kingsolver has written some good books about the supernatural in Appalachia too.
Oh, there you go. I'll have to look that up then. All right. Well, David, tell us again the name of your book and where all we can find it in your website.
Yeah, the book has its own website, actually, and it's beyondthehigherground.com. One long word. It's beyondthehigherground.com. I have direct links to all the online services if you want to buy the book. I have my reviews are in there. I have a testimonial from the state of Ohio. Actually, the House in the state of Ohio sent me a testimonial complimenting me on the book and the value of it, which was really helpful.
Nice.
Yeah. So, and I have a lot of my media interviews and so forth are on there, and there's a bio on me in there as well. So it's the easiest thing to do is just go right to the book's own website and find what you want. And I'm getting a lot of traffic right now too. So.
Well, that's great. Good. Well, Thomas, sorry, I had another interview earlier this morning, David, and my mind's stuck on that.
That's what
Thomas.
A lot of things, so.
Yeah. I appreciate you taking some time today, and I think your book sounds interesting. I wish you the best of luck on it.
Well, thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for listening to Discovered Wordsmiths. Come back next week and listen to another author discuss the road they've traveled, and maybe, sometime in the near future, it might be you.